Rainbow. What a pleasure it is to be back after a 2 week hiatus. I mean, we were away at a school in Tirunelveli to conduct a lit fest. I mean, the best kind of thing that you can do in life. To be in the midst of kids with books, with writers, and all the maza that accompanies it. So that was, our first outstation, trip after February 2020. I mean, the last we were out, we were in a school in Varanasi in Feb 2020. And now, after a long, long wait of 2 years, more than 2 years, in fact, we were at Tirunelveli for an entire week, absolutely having a great time with creators of Indian children's the books themselves, and children of all age groups. So Team Funky Rainbow is back, refreshed, delighted that so many things can be done in the real world. I mean, it had absolutely changed the way we have been working across the last 2 years, had sort of entirely changed. But we are back, energized, and with a whole bunch of bazaars for you this month. But you know what? I mean, I'm really thinking that there's going to be a couple of breaks like this that come in between, during this calendar year, simply because there are schools who are interested in conducting lit fests with us. If you're a teacher, a principal, or a founder of a school, get in touch with Funky Rainbow if you'd like to see a lit fest, a children's literature festival in your school, in your city, in your town. We are unafraid to go where no one has gone before. Muttama, good morning. So lovely to see you, on the other side after spending an entire week right next to each other at Tirunelveli. But, such a pleasure to, such a pleasure to really be out and about in the real world. Book Pickle, good morning. So lovely to see you here. You say, so happy to know that literature festivals have started again. Great that you guys kicked it off. I can't tell you enough, how thankful we are from Team Funky Rainbow that this process has started rolling, and we're hoping, in a year or so, we'll be able to travel with the bazaar as well, keeping fingers crossed and hoping we can make that happen. We're ready to climb every mountain, we're ready to cross every sea, and according to the theme of this bazaar, go past every jungle, taking children's books and their creators here, there, everywhere. Our theme today is, of course, on the jungles, and entirely almost the jungles of India. We are, of course, celebrating Teachers' Day in advance. I mean, we know 5th September is Teachers' Day, so we're delighted that our guest today, I mean, the writer of a wonderful new children's book that has come out just maybe a month ago or so, When the Jungles Whisper, by author Priti Menon. Our guest, Priti Menon, is a teacher with over 20 years experience teaching in CBSE, State Board, and, IB schools. And it's such a pleasure to have a teacher and a creative writer as a guest today. She will be joining us later in the show to talk about her fantastic new book, When the Jungles Whisper. So, of course, in the light of this one, we've culled out a whole bunch of books, whole bunch of jungle books for all of you to enjoy. The thing is, I mean, these are books that are set in jungles. We've got several bizarre themes. We've got tigers, we've got birds, we've got elephants, and many of those are jungle books as well. So we've tried not to include all those ones in this bazaar. These ones set in the different forests, wetlands, I mean, in the forests and the forest reserves of India, across India. And we really hope you will enjoy our selection today, as well as the chat with teacher author Priti Menon, which comes up at 12 noon. I'm going to get started. I mean, this month, September, when we were looking at the dates to make our social media posts, has a whole whole host of environment days. I mean, there's International Primate Day that just went past. I know there's a World Ozone Day. There's an Environment Protection Day. There's a World Rivers Day. Lots of themes centric on the environment. So we thought it was only right to kickstart the bazaar with, kickstart the September bazaar, bazaars with an environment theme. Tara Veeraraghavan, good morning. So lovely to see you here. I'm going to start off with my first bunch of recommendations, and this one is a set of lovely books from Pratham. I love this first one, which I'm recommending, called Who Ate All That Up by Sejal Mehta and illustrated by Rohan Chakravarti. It's such a fantastic conceptual book set in the jungles. It's all about how is a forest so clean? How is it always so clean? Unless, and of course, human beings have gone and messed it up. But even then, it gets really nice and clean because nothing, just nothing, is wasted in the jungle. You have to just see this delightful little picture book, called Who Ate All That Up, which shows you how interconnected everything is in our entire ecosystems, life systems, and in the forest, how everything gets cleaned up because when the leopards don't finish their food, who eats the rest of it? It's the vultures and the hyenas. And you can see. Now, what happens to the hungry wild boar? What of the food that the hyenas and the vultures leave behind? Well, there are the flies and the maggots. I mean, it's such a lovely, simple little book for our youngest readers, giving you a fantastic idea of how nothing, just nothing in a jungle is ever wasted. And of course, because Rohan has illustrated the book, I mean, one of our foremost environmental cartoonists, there's that lovely touch of humor with the wild boar. I'll let you pick that one up and figure out what that humor is all about. In the same light, with another book from Pratham called When a Forest Wakes Up by Sudarshan Shaw. I mean, it's such a beautiful Gond story. I mean, like a Gond legend, where they imbue everything in the forest with life. I mean, in the sense that when the story begins, the sun rises and the forest wakes up with the sun. Now, I truly wish I had the character traits of the forest. I'm not sure I rise when the sun rises, for sure, and I'm sure my colleagues at Funky Rainbow will testify to that. Now, what happens when the sun rises and the forest wakes up? There's a show ready for all of us to see. And what will the forest choose to be on this sunny day? What a beautiful book. I mean, very inspired by the concept of animism, which is an absolute age old belief of the Gond tribe, where everything from the sun to the rocks to, any and every object in the jungle has they're as living and alive as we are. A beautiful little book, picture book, about the butterflies, about the creatures, about the trees, the plants, the rocks, the soil, all of them in the jungle, and what happens when the forest wakes up? What does it choose to be that day? Indeed, Haripriya Batula, what beautiful illustrations, all, written and illustrated by Sudarshan Shaw. Just a very, very wonderful book on how a forest is such a precious ecosystem right in our midst. Two books for absolutely our youngest readers. We'd say you can begin. Well, like I said, age groups, they're always, they're dependent on whom you're reading the book to, whom you're introducing the books to, actually. We'd say really, start from 2+, 3+, all of these books would work for those age groups. Our next set of recommendations is two board books, and one of them came into our shelves just a week before we went off to Tirunelveli. This fantastic board book called Rumble Tumble Love in the Jungle. Just love the title of this board book. Beautifully produced, wonderfully done by, written by Urvi Piramal, Vinita Kanoria, and Lubena Bandukwala, who was one of the writers who came with us to Tirunelveli and introduced us to this lovely board book, which has just been released, I'm assuming, just a couple of months ago, illustrated by Devangana Dash. What is it all about? Well, it's that kind of book that you must cuddle up to with your child, because it's all about how animal families say, I love you. How do they do that? Sometimes it's a jostle, sometimes it's a nudge, sometimes it's a snuggle, but you've just got to see this gloriously photographed, book to understand how animal families across the globe say I love you. And when I say across the globe, I mean, the forests in the book, take you from the forests of the Arctic to the forests, of the savannas, to the forests of India. You should just see how handsomely and wonderfully produced this excellent book is. Absolutely a keeper of, simply for its most loving concept and for its glorious production values. This one, priced at 300 rupees, is absolutely a must have for parents, who want to read board books with their children. And in this case, absolutely telling you what love in a jungle is like. This one, like I said, we just, well, you can start from when your child is born. You can start by showing them these glorious photos. As they grow older, they will ask you, where have these photos been shot? I mean, is this in the Arctic? Is this in the savannah? Is it in one of the forests of India? Just think how you can grow and how your child can grow with such a beautiful book. Another little board book, which also, came into our collection perhaps just a month and a half ago. We have a lot of their books, at the moment. The publisher is called Curious Kids, and they have created these characters called Zen and Zoe. And this one that we're showing you is called Who is in the Jungle. So you can see Zen and Zoe. They are characters who appear in all the Curious Kids books, basically. And what are Zen and Zoe doing in the jungle? Well, they're looking at the rustling of the trees, they're looking at the hustling of the bushes. They are absolutely trying to hear the sounds of the jungle, and the different sounds that animals make. You can see they're also looking at animals that are leaping, animals that are jumping, animals that are crouching low, and animals that are thumping through the forest. And what you do when you go with them into this jungle is you meet different animals, wild animals, and you understand, and you get to know their calls and their movements. Two absolutely lovely little board books, not very expensive, at all. 300 rupees, excellent production values. Great way to introduce your kids to one of our most spectacular ecosystems, the forest, or the forest reserves and the jungles. And of course, like I said, most of the books in our collection today absolutely focusing on the forests and the reserves of India. My next recommendation, and I love this book absolutely, it makes you laugh, it really makes you chuckle in delight. Hicko Pottermas, written by Geeta Dharmarajan and illustrated by Atanu Roy. Such a fantastic story set in Gulmohar jungle, where there are several animals just sitting around the pond, when something absolutely, I mean, I think sitting around the pond and settling in for an afternoon nap, when something so enormous falls into their white lily pond. Now, what is this enormous thing that falls into the pond? Well, it's a hiccuping hippopotamus called Havasi. Now, you can imagine what fun this book is. Atanu Roy, really one of our doyen illustrators, making you laugh with every illustration and the fantastic wordplay. So, Havasi is a hickopotamus. You know why, he is a hickopotamus? Simply because he has hiccups. Now, what do the animals do? There is a wise owl in the story who says, well, hippos only live in Africa. You're really far, far away from home, aren't you? How are we going to send Hawasi back home? It's just such a lovely story in the midst of all the jungle walas and walis of Gulmohar jungle. And what do they do? How do they manage to get Hawasi back home? Do they manage to get Hawasi back home? I mean, it's perfect for young readers. We'd say, if you're reading it out to the kids, we'd say read it at 3 plus, 4 plus maybe. And if the kids have to read it on their own, perhaps 5 plus. Such a delightful, I mean, tons of giggles guaranteed from this fantastic book. Well, our next set of recommendations, have there are two wonderful books that give you that tell you how many life lessons are encompassed in our jungles. And the next one that we're going to introduce to you, Clock in the Jungle, written by Ketki Pandit and illustrated by Sneha Uplekar, is one such lovely book. Now, what of the animals in the jungle and the birds and all the creatures and the insects? Do they have a timetable? Well, I know we do have one. This has got to get done. That has got to get done. Checklist, check this, tick this. Bazaar on a Saturday, something else on a Monday, school pop up on a Thursday. And we do have a calendar of sorts and a sort of, and a clock. I mean, and like a timeline that says when things need to get done. What of the creatures in the jungle? Do they have a timetable? What do they do? Do they sleep in the mornings and do they stay awake all night like some human beings in Funky Rainbow? Do they play all day and are they always busy at night? You have to, take a walk into this jungle to find out, and of course, this jungle is in the Western Ghats of India, for you to see what happens hour by hour in the jungle. What happens? What does the green snake do in the morning? What do the langurs do in the afternoon? What do the owls do at night? And is there even a tiger o'clock? What a fantastic book. I mean, to tell you about how, minus calendars and clocks, there is an order and symmetry in the jungle. It's a delightful book. We'd recommend it for 5+ year olds, 6+ year olds, and to get a sense of what 24 magical hours in a jungle is like. Definitely, recommended for all of us who want to, or let's say definitely recommended for those who have the time to read, definitely. Our next one, in the same vein, again for very young readers, we'd say 4+, 5+, is called One More Does Matter, Lana, written by David Howlett and illustrated by Urvashi Dubey. This is a new publisher on our shelves. We've been having their books for the last 2 months or so, Daffodil Lane. And Lana, in this lovely, very, very nicely illustrated book, is a little rabbit. And what does the little rabbit want to do? Well, the little rabbit is trying to save the forest, close to where she lives, one tree at a time. And I think, I mean, for the children who are reading it, it's just a fun story about a a creative little rabbit called Lana, who absolutely uses her imagination to ensure that the trees around her, in the forest around her, don't get chopped off. There are, of course, greedy people, greedy creatures around her. There's Mr. Wolf, who's a tree cutting sort of Mr. Wolf. Now, what does Lana do to save the planet? Now, if the child didn't get this message, then, it simply doesn't matter. It's a delightful story of how a rabbit tries to save her environment. But if they do get the message, there's the subtle, wonderful messaging of why we need to do what we need to do to protect the forests around us, to save our trees. And we know, 1/3 of the earth is covered by forests. And these forests provide life support to all the creatures, that live in the planet, including human beings. And yet, we've been mowing them down at a pace and a speed that is just, that now threatens what is one of our most valuable ecosystems. And I think, kids from the youngest age, and they all are, children are so vocal these days about, about safeguarding the planet, because this is what they are going to inherit. And I think the younger you begin with books for them on these themes, the better it is for them when they grow up to, become the people who make the change that we all want to see. So this one more does matter, Lana. One more tree, saving one more tree, one little plant, preventing one flower from being plucked, one more does absolutely matter. This one priced at 300 rupees as well. And lovely books for our youngest readers, we'd say. 4 plus, for both Clock in the Jungle and One More Does Matter, Lana. We do, of course, have our ever popular guest appearance quiz. And in this show as well, we've got one for people who are watching us for the first time. There are 3 clues that we give across the hour between 11:30 and 12. All those clues, we need you to guess the name of one person. All the clues are connected to that one person. Now, when the quiz is done, when all the 3 clues are done, there'll be a Google form that goes up. You need to click on that and fill in your entries, and you have time till next Friday when we pick the winners of the quiz. So if you can, of course, find the answer without Googling, yay, that's the best possible way. But if you need to Google and find your answers, well, you're still learning something new. So our guest appearance quiz today, of course, connected to the forests of India. For our friends on Instagram, you will be able to see the first question. The other two, I don't think they'll be able to see the first question too, isn't it, Sham? They're not going to be able to. Sorry, I got that wrong. Our friends on Instagram, you can come back to our social media pages after the bazaar and look at the quiz and punch in your answers. We just draw lots, next Friday to pick the winners. Okay, so that was our first guest appearance question for our friends on Instagram. I'm going to call that one out. In 1979, a 16-year-old started planting a tree sapling a day. Today, with that one tree a day practice, he has single handedly created a forest sprawling over the size of 15 football fields. Popularly known as the Forest Man of India, this environmental activist was honored with the Padma Shri, the 4th highest civilian award in India, in 2015. Who is he? So I'm calling this one out. The next clue is a visual clue, and the third one, an audio clue. You can catch that once we put up the quiz post this bazaar. Divya Menon, and I hope Avyukt and Ameya Nair are with you. You're saying good morning to all, and we're excited with today's theme. Always excited about the theme around in the environment. But before we get on with our next recommendations, we have to say a big thank you to Divya, to Siddharth, to Avyukt and Ameya, who facilitated a pop-up in their gated community when we were away in Tirunelveli. And Sham took our books and popped up at that gated community. But you know who was recommending all the books? to the children who wanted to buy, to the parents who wanted to buy, our two most wonderful ambassadors of reading and reading champions, like we haven't seen before at all, Avyukt and Ameya. So, from all of us, a big, big, big thank you. We know how much support we have in this ecosystem when we can travel somewhere else and somebody wants to take our pop up to their gated communities or to a pop up in the city and do the recommending themselves. It's not going to be long before some of you start hosting our bazaar. So really a big shout out to Avyukt, Ameya, Divya and Siddharth. Thank you so much for facilitating that while we were away. With that, of course, I get on to my next set of recommendations. And this one, the next one that I'm recommending, a very, very old book from our collection, but one of my absolute favorites, Bhasava and the Dots of Fire by Radhika Chadha. What a beautiful book this is, illustrated by Bhakti Phatak. Now, this is just the kind of perfect book that brings in, there is the forest. It is set in the forest because Bhasava goes to the forest every day to collect firewood for his mother. But one day before he comes back, it grows absolutely dark and he can't find his way home. But I'm not going to give this away to you. What are those dots of fire that light up the forest? This is such a beautiful, gentle story. I mean, the kind of story that you can read, like, if I think if your child has come back after a busy day of school with just a whole bunch of things going on, what a perfect, gentle story to unwind, to calm down, and to tell us that the universe is absolutely all right. I mean, it's really, I can see Rupa Baliga, good morning. How lovely to see you. You say it's such beautiful illustrations. Love this one. There's so much to love in this fantastic story. I think all reading households, must have a copy of the book. And I can see Avyukt saying, "Thank you, Auntie. We had a good time with Aaron and it was a super fun day." Of course, I forgot that, Sham went with his son Aaron to the pop up and Avyukt and Ameya. So the our younger generations really, I mean, holding our world together so beautifully well. And just like this fantastic book, Bhasava and the Dots of Fire, we would recommend this for all 5+ year olds, but really adults of all ages, who come back after a long day of work, need to read this one to know that everything's gonna be all right. Really, what a beautiful story set in a jungle, hence put into our collection. In a similar vein, a lovely, lovely book from Tara, again, an old one. I mean, this is the lovely thing about the bazaar. It helps us revisit books that have been published many, many years ago. We've had them in our collections forever. And, sometimes because there are newer and newer books, we absolutely, keep recommending them to a lot of people who come to pick up books. But there are these beautiful gems tucked away in, and when you do a bazaar, it gives us a chance to dive deep into our collection and find even the old classics. And this one from Tara, written by Sirish Rao and illustrated by Durga Bai, called The Old Animals Forest Band, is such a lovely, lovely book. I mean, very funny, very beautifully illustrated. What of this, what of the old animals forest band? Well, it's an adaptation of a famous Grimm's fairy tale. There are four animals: a sleepy dog, an unmilkable cow, a weak-kneed monkey, a weak-kneed donkey, I'm sorry, and a confused cockerel, who are all just thrown out of the village that they're living in by their ungrateful masters. Please note, always the ungrateful people in these books are the human beings. Such a good pointer to what a selfish species we are. So, what happens? They move out into the forests and they get a chance to show the world that they are anything but useless. so beautifully illustrated by Gond artist Durga Bai, and I'm sure many of you have seen beautiful books illustrated by her. This one is a quirky tale about an old animals forest band. I mean, I'm sure the cover gives you a hint about what the animals do and how they prove that they can be useful, but I'm not telling you more. You need to pick up this excellent book and read it and chuckle over it and understand why creatures great and small and why the ecosystems that they live in matter so much to us. Well, the next set of recommendations, two excellent books moving up, in the age groups, a couple of notches. We have these two excellent books from Terry, and the first one that I'm going to recommend to you is called The Forests Belong to Us. If you cut a tree, the subtitle of the book says, if you cut a tree, you cut your life. It's by that wonderful writer Subhadra Sengupta. In fact, both books that we're going to recommend here by the late Subhadra Sengupta, who really was a mentor to all of us in Team Funky Rainbow, our most dear friend. And there's not a day that goes past, or not an event that goes past, or not a lit fest that goes past for without remembering her. Even just yesterday, Muttama, yesterday or probably day before yesterday, Muttama said, there was a school asking us to come up and do a lit fest, and she was just saying that if Subhadra was there, she would have livened up that lit fest so marvelously well. We're so delighted that we have her books at least to keep us company. Now, what is this one about? I mean, we'd recommend this for 8, 9+ year olds, I would say, more like it, because it's quite heavy on text. Well, this is part of the Caring for Nature series, which focuses on the important stories of people's movements. I mean, people who have actually made a difference, saying that you can't destroy our environment. We are going to fight till, our last breath to protect our environment. And this one, so the series, there are many books in the series. There's the Narmada Bachao Andolan in that series. I think there's, Save the Ganga as well. But this one is about the Chipko movement, where people literally, chipko meaning sticking, where people literally stuck to the trees to ensure that they didn't get cut down. Such a fantastic book, and I think all our children need to know. And I think they already do. Look at young, people across the world who are asking tough questions. Activists of all age groups, right? I mean, as young as Greta Thunberg, asking adults uncomfortable questions, because this is the planet that they are going to inherit. And now, for our children to know that people, that every single one of them can make a difference. These wonderful books, this one on the Chipko movement, and Listen to Nature's Song about the Silent Valley campaign in Kerala, which really did prevent the felling of a huge forest in order to build a dam. I mean, the rainforests of Kerala, absolutely, how a people's rights movement led by ordinary everyday people, saying that no, you cannot cut down our lush forests, you cannot take away the sound of the Malabar hornbill, for instance, or not let us see the macaque. We need to keep these forests intact, and I'm sorry, they can't be cut to let a dam be built in its place. Two wonderful books. We would absolutely recommend this. In fact, the entire series, we have all the books in the series at the moment. We would recommend you pick these up to show your children how human beings can, we are not just we're not just selfish creatures. There are some of us who want to save the environment and preserve our biodiversity. Two wonderful books. We're going to get into question 2 of the quiz, and for our friends on Instagram, you're not going to be able to see this one, so please come back to our social media pages on Facebook or Instagram after the bazaar is done, and you can absolutely watch the quiz and fill in the Google form and submit your answers. We collate the answers on the Friday before the next bazaar and pick our winners. I can see Muttama saying Subhadra was such a mega star in my world. Thanks to you guys, I got to know her. I think you would have just absolutely gotten to know her anyways, Muttama. She's really a star. And, in starlight right now, really, I'm sure having a great time with all the historical figures that she wanted to meet. Question two now of guest appearance. So that was question two. It was a picture of a photograph of the person whose name you have to guess. And I'm sure many of you, especially those of you who've been reading Indian children's books carefully, probably already know the answer. You're going to have to wait for us to give out the third clue before we put out the Google form for you to fill in and guess the name of this forest man of India. Our next set of recommendations, and we are moving a little higher up. I mean, if you typically see the bazaars, you know that we're watching. I mean, we start with books for the younger readers, go up to chapter books, and then move into books for middle readers, going up to young adults. All that just to say that we have a whole range of books at Funky Rainbow, starting from 0 years going up to 18 years. Books of fiction, non-fiction, almost all and entirely by Indian creators only. So do consider visiting our website, www.funkyrainbow.com. There's just an array of books for you to choose from. And this specific one for this bazaar, you have to click on the tab that says Book Bazaar. There will be a drop down menu that says season 1, season 2, season 3. Please go to season 5, find the link that says, forests or jungles, and all these books, plus a whole bunch of them more. I mean, we recommend 10, 12 of them. There are at least 50, 60 books in every bazaar. And these are just jungle books. We do have bazaars that were done on tigers, on elephants, on birds, on wildlife, on biodiversity. There's just that many books that exist on the environment. So do consider browsing and picking them up for your children, whether your parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, teachers, librarians, just a whole diverse collection of books, on www.funkyrainbow.com. Of course, nothing that we do on the environment can happen without this master writer, Ranjit Lal, one of our foremost writers, a contemporary of Subhadra's, and again, an older book that we're recommending called That Summer at Kalagar. I mean, it's at least 15 years old as far as I know it, but it's so relevant even today. Ranjit, deftly setting his books in, wild locales very often, but delineating human feelings like no other writer in the Indian children's context does. And now, what is That Summer in Kalagar about? Well, Gitanjali, she's mad with her cousins. Now, her cousins are Ajay, Ajit, and Avik. And why is that? Because they call her Hathni. She's a little plump, and so they call her she elephant. And that absolutely gets her goat every single time. And you know how nicknames stick, and you know how nicknames bother you. But this story, what happens to Gitanjali? How does she show her cousins? And it's not the goal of the story is not for her to show her cousins that she's better than them, but it takes you into the heart, into Kalagar, which is in the heart of Corbett country. And, in the midst of gentle creatures, wild creatures that share the planet with us. Now, what happens? There is an encounter, there is a wild encounter. What does Gitanjali do to prevent our wildlife from being poached? And what does that do to her cousins? I mean, do they join in when they see that this girl is a lot more than just that terrible nickname that they have given her? This is Ranjit Lal absolutely at his best. He has a naturalist's eye. He has, it's the lush setting of the Kumaon Hills in Corbett country. He has such a good way to write about human feelings. And this tale, full of mystery, full of, Ranjit's trademark humor, and set right in the middle of a forest, is an absolutely wonderful read. 9 plus, 10 plus year olds is what we'd say. Mutima saying, well, that was my nickname too. Who the heck cares about nicknames? Because in Gitanjali, in the book, shows them that she has the strength and the gentleness of an elephant. Fabulous book, absolutely recommended for 10 plus year olds. And in the same vein, another beautiful book, which I stumbled upon just some years ago, maybe 7 years ago, when we were putting together an award, the Good Books Awards. It's the first time that I read this author called Stephen Alter. And what a beautiful book The Secret Sanctuary is, in exactly the opposite vein of what Ranjit has done. This is an entirely magical book, because this is like, a set in a magical jungle where there are thrushes that brush against your cheek. There are barking deer that stop and say hello. I mean, there are monkeys, there are miners, there are mountain bears. You can go off in the on a mountain trail and search, let's say, for a rare creature. You can watch the spiders spinning webs on trees, and it's just a beautiful idyllic world that Stephen Alter has created in this Secret Sanctuary. It's a magical jungle world that he's created, and readers, as the protagonists on the book, are just sort of pulled into this secret sanctuary, this enchanted jungle. Now, what is the mystery in the book? I mean, what happens? Well, once you enter the secret sanctuary, you can never ever get out. I mean, this book has been fabulously illustrated by Prabha Malya. I mean, and we know Prabha Malya does these fantastic illustrations of creatures great and small. I love the cover of the book. I love the way she's illustrated different creatures. So this, we would say, 10 plus, again 9 plus, depending if your children are reading at a higher level. We urge all of you readers to enter this idyllic world, and we promise you that you will never be able to go back once you enter this secret sanctuary. This one, priced at 199 rupees, much as that Summer at Kalagar. Two beautiful books. Actually, you can have your children read them in contrast. One absolutely set in the real world, and one set in the fantasy world, but with the same messaging at the end of both stories. Our next set of recommendations. Okay, so Bharti is indicating that I need to put out the third question of the quiz, which Sham will put up now. Guess appearance. This is an audio clue. Take a listen.
2012 से आज तक 10 ईयर्स में अवेयरनेस हुआ। ये नहीं इंडिया में कर रहा है, ऐसे ही नहीं, ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड कर रहा है। इसके लिए आजकल जितनी भी कर रहा है, क्लाइमेट चेंज तो ज़्यादा होता है, हम लोग जिंदे रहेगा कि नहीं रहेगा।
Okay, that Hasn't the broadcast hasn't gone back? Okay, that was the third clue, an audio clue of the person whose name you need to guess. I mean, the entire quiz will be up on our social media channels post the bazaar, so do take do check it out and fill in the Google forms and send in your entries. We will pick two winners on Friday next week. My last set of recommendations before we invite our guests of the day, two fantastic books for older readers, we'd say 12 plus. The first one, Flute in the Forest by Leela Gaur Broom, is a wonderful story set right in the heart of a jungle. It's actually a tender tale about Atiya, about a young girl called Atiya who lives with her dad. He's a forest officer, and she's a child who's afflicted by polio. Now, does that stop her from going into the jungle for short jaunts? I mean, she does get off on short treks, she does go off on short treks, and she is finds a lot of peace and a lot of solace in the jungle. On one of these treks, she hears the notes of a flute. It gives her goosebumps, the melodious notes of a flute, and she vows that she's going to try to find the source of that musical instrument, or who's playing the musical instrument, and learn to play it herself. This is quite against her father's wishes, because it sort of takes her on explorations further than she's allowed to go in the forest. And that exploration brings her very close to an old anthropologist called Uncle Ogre, and his Kurumba tribal daughter called Mishora. Now, what happens to that friendship between Atiya and Mishora, and what life lessons do the adults learn from this friendship? I mean, the book is absolutely set in the heart of a jungle, because there's a rogue elephant in the story as well. And what it does is to and it's definitely written, the author Leela Gaur Broom absolutely lives very, very close to the heart, in the heart of nature. When she lives in Pune, but Pune on a farm, and has explored several wild spaces herself. She tells a mesmerizing tale set in the forest. We would recommend this for 11 plus, 12 plus year olds. You have to get in to really understand why a forest is the source of so much peace, and why adults should listen to children every now and then. And of course, our final recommendation, because it's by another writer who can't be ignored at all when we talk about the environmental history of India, or writing for children on the environment. This is Zai Whitaker with The Rumbling Island: True Stories from the Forests of India. Edited this it's a collection of essays edited by Zai Whitaker. What a fantastic it's a little book. I mean, there are 10 essays in the book by various people. There's Ashish Chandola, there is Monica Jackson, there's Ramchandra Guha, there's Sally Walker, there's Manish Chandi, and we have books by many of these authors in our collection. I mean, the Tara books, Walking, Speaking to an Elephant, and Walking is a Way of Knowing, done by Manish Chandi. We know Ramchandra Guha, what a fantastic spokesperson for the environment he is. Beautiful essays. And of course, there's Bittu Sehgal. I mean, how can we forget Bittu Sehgal? I remember being way past my age, but loving to read Sanctuary Cub, the magazine Sanctuary Cub that Bittu Sehgal edited for children on the environment and wildlife. There are wonderful pieces in this essay that take you, in this collection of essays that take you in and out of so many forests of India. I'd say all adults interested in wildlife, and children older than 12, maybe 13, can read, should read this fantastic collection of essays on our most precious national asset, the forests. So with that, these are just a clutch of recommendations for you, set in the various jungles and forest reserves of India. There are several more books on the site www.funkyrainbow.com. Click on the tag that says Book Bazaar, go to season 5, click on the one that says jungle books, and there's just a whole bunch of them. Muttama, of course, reminding me, another teacher author, amazing combination, absolutely. Taught at the Cody International School for so many years, Zai Whitaker. And obviously this is a fabulous combination when it comes to producing wonderful books for children. We are utterly and absolutely delighted to invite the newest teacher author on the block, to join us for a conversation today. I'm just going to check if Priti Menon is live and welcome her and say hello.
Hello.
Hi, Priti.
So I'm live.
I'm just hello there, and
Hello.
so lovely to see you here. We've been talking right through our recommendations in the first hour to say, teacher author combinations are just so fabulous, and we are delighted that we have a new one here with a new book today to introduce to our audiences.
I am super delighted myself. Likewise, thank you so much for inviting me to this book bazaar. It gives me this feeling of something exciting, like I'm entering this enchanted forest. That's the same feeling I get in a book bazaar. It's so exciting. So yes, I'm honored to be here on your show, and thank you for inviting me. Yes.
We are just going to send you out that invitation on Instagram before we introduce you to our audiences. So just accept that one and we'll go live up on Instagram as well.
Okay. Have I accepted it? Does it work?
Yes.
It works.
Can you switch the camera? The camera needs to be switched. Okay. While lots of people are drum rolling for you, Muttama amongst all of them, sending drum rolls and claps your way, Priti Menon.
Okay, the camera. I thought the camera was. Oh, it's not. It's not. It's not.
Okay.
Is that fine?
Is that good, Cham? I just see purple. Okay, so he says all he can see is purple and not green.
Okay.
Switched on.
Yeah.
And you have to switch.
Take a minute, no problem. Take
a
minute.
Yeah, I got it.
And there you are. Thank you to whoever helped you do that. Family is meant for this only, really. Such a pleasure again for to all our friends on Instagram as well. Such a pleasure to welcome Priti Menon on the show today. She's here. In fact, her book was the reason that we themed this bazaar on jungles and forests of India, where there's When the Jungles Whisper by her. And we're going to be in conversation about this most exciting book and get the teacher come author to give us a few great tips on what it takes to get our children to read and enjoy nature at the same time. Just a quick introduction to Priti. I mean, as I've been telling you right through the show, she's an educator with more than CBSE schools in, state board schools, and presently, with an international school teaching the IB and IGSE, curriculum. But Priti has always, not the teaching career notwithstanding, I think, been mesmerized with words. It's very, very evident when you read her book to understand that it's something that has always been of great importance to her. And for those of you who pick up copies of the book, you will understand what I mean when I say how beautifully she uses language to convey a love for nature and creatures great and small in her book. The other thing that really fascinates Priti is wildlife, of course. I mean, we have a bunch of questions for her that come up, which trace, how all her summer vacations were filled with explorations of the wild in different parts of the country. And even, even after she became a teacher, traveling with her husband and her children to various wild places across the country. If there is one book that's going to transport your children into the great wild, it's definitely Priti Menon's When the Jungles Whisper. Welcome again. Delighted to have you and to be in conversation with you, Priti.
Thank you, Vidya. And I'm equally
So
excited.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead and say what you
I'm
were saying,
very
Priti.
excited to be here and have a conversation with everybody.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, because it's a fairly new book that's come up on our shelves.
Yeah.
You take books through the A to Z of
Mhm.
India's fantastic wildlife. What made you choose this alphabetical format to introduce a host of creatures, great and small, to young readers, Preeti?
So when I started writing, there were these stories that were swirling in my head for a very long time, and it was always in the back burner. But I needed to get them out. So when I started writing, I knew exactly who I wanted my audience to be, and they were going to be children. That's it. Period. So they needed to hear these stories because children, to me, children have this innate quality of being very empathetic and being very curious and having this great love, innate love for nature and animals. So my story had to be directed to them. It was just natural that I converted my experiences into stories, and the stories were directed to them. They were written for them, and they were spoken to them actually. So that's how it all started. And then I thought about how I could structure these stories into a way
Right.
that would hook them. That's important. We need to hook our audience, and once we know who our audience are, then it becomes that much easier. So I needed to hook them, and so I thought I would start my stories in alphabetical order, and I gave them a an alliterative title to again grab their attention. And one thing about children is that they love patterns. So it was
Right.
it intrigues them so much. So this pattern of having an alphabetically ordered structure, and to give an alliterative title, and then to pick the most critically endangered species from different parts of
Absolutely.
India, and create stories, weave stories around them, about their lifestyle, their habitat, their where they stay, the food they eat, the animals that they interact with. All that just started forming together, and that's how it came about.
How lovely. We have a young reader who picked this book when he visited last time, and he's commenting, using his mother's profile, saying, "Yeah, auntie, we just picked this book, and we're totally loving how the grandmom tells stories about different forests to two kids, like our own grandmom tells us, and she also calls us the same names." Which which sort of leads me into our next question, which says, each of these 26 stories, and you say it so well, the alliterative titles, and I'm not going to give away the creatures to our audience who's listening in.
Okay, yeah,
Anju's awesome adventure, there's Bunsy's bubbly buddies, and I'm not going to tell you because you have to pick up the book and find out who
absolutely
Bunsy is and who
true.
Bunsy's buddies are. Charming Chandrika's chat. And I have to say that when I came to the Chandrika section, I was so taken aback by who Chandrika really was. So, not giving you any more clues, but each of these
Yeah,
26 stories, narrated by an Amama or an Amuma, however you, refer to her, to
yeah.
Kanna and Molu when they visit her in the summer holidays. Now, I know, Preeti, when you shared information about yourself, you told us about coming from Kuwait, traveling from Kuwait
Yeah.
to Thrissur every year in the summer vacations to spend time in your parents' villages, and meeting your grandparents. So how much of you is in Kanna and Molu, and why did you choose to tell stories? Why are these two children?
Yeah. See, to me, first off, storytelling is such a powerful instruction or a medium such a powerful medium of instruction. So it is, for that matter, it is timeless, and it is so enriching, to hear that. So I wanted to create this story within a story, where you have amuma, or the grandmother, reading stories to the children and with the children, because much of that is drawn from my own experience. I would look forward to coming from Kuwait during our summer vacation. And it just so happened that our summer vacation always coincided with the monsoons in India,
Right.
in Kerala, to be precise. Of course, we always flew in, sometimes we flew in via Delhi because we had relatives there. Sometimes we flew via Mumbai to have the change of experience because we had relatives there as well. But Mumbai, just like Kerala, had also monsoons at the same time. So it was just an incredible experience, Vidya, just to come to India, to have those rain sounds, the smells, the sights. That to me was the quintessential holiday. It was so divine. I have no other words for it. It was absolutely fabulous, especially coming from Kuwait, which was, it was dry, it was arid, it was, those kind of
Barren.
things. And I'm talking about the 70s, and the early 70s and 80s. So coming to India was the highlight of my life, and coming to the village. So as an author, now coming to the other question, as an author, how much do I see myself in these characters? I have been in every character's shoes, in every character's shoes. So my
Lovely.
mother would tell me stories. I would read stories to my children every day when they were young. And so, and every character in my stories have a little bit of all the children that I have taught in my entire 3 decades of
How
teaching
lovely.
and
How
learning.
lovely.
I mean, I have drawn inspiration from them. They are my inspiration. I learn every day. I learn something new, something wonderful about my children, about the students, and I've incorporated all that into my stories. So yes, they are my inspiration.
Lovely, lovely. The other thing that really strikes you about the book, Preeti, is the sheer diversity of landscapes you
Oh.
cover. Whether it's forest reserves to wetlands to river deltas to mountains. I mean, I think it may not have been possible if you didn't actually travel a lot. I mean, it comes through, even if they're short stories about these critically endangered creatures, basically your love for travel absolutely comes through. So I wanted to ask, are you a happy camper yourself, and did you actually go to all the places that you've described in the book?
Yes, I have been to most of the places that's described in the book. Many of them, many of the forest reserves. They have been just marvelous journeys, just marvelous. So for me, life is all about experiences. And I have, it's about experiences, and it's about creating memories through these experiences. And I wanted to translate those experiences into in these anecdotes in the book. So every time I visit a forest reserve, I would actually go get back and then make a little diary entry or a journal
No.
entry. And it was not about facts, because facts are, they're mundane. For me, it was the sensory imagery, all the sensory things, sensations that you feel, what you see, the animals that you see, the animals, the chirping of the birds, the rustling of the leaves, the cool breeze blowing in your ears, blowing and touching you. So it's this sensory imagery that I bring into the books, because children need to know that there's just so much out there. So these experiences, when you read them, when they read this, then they realize, aha, I felt that too. So let me write that. Let me create some of those memories, or write some of those experiences in my creative writing. So this yes, I have been to most of them, and yes, I am a happy camper. I love traveling. It just energizes you. There's just so much that you learn just by traveling. It's an
Yes.
amazing journey, and there's so much that India has to offer. So yes, why not make good use of it?
In fact, that's something that we utterly love about your book. I mean, it's really well said that those who do not travel turn but only a page, of a book. And, I can see Avyuk saying, it's so nice to hear what goes on at the back end of writing a book and what actually inspires an author. Okay, Sham's pointing out saying it's not Avyuk, it's Divya, Avyuk's mother, who's making that comment. And Geetanjali Korean saying, fantastic to see you here, Preet.
Ah,
Obviously, a
yes,
friend who's
Anjali,
watching
yes. Wonderful.
and
Yeah.
cheering for you. And Mutama saying, such a fabulous tip for those who want to write themselves. Now, in keeping in mind all the travels, I mean, how different experientially are the jungles of India, let's say from the wilds of the Masai Mara that you have visited, and you've also been in the Amazon forests. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite Indian forest? I mean, maybe one from what you featured in the book, and one of the animals that you've spoken about. And I know that this is like asking a teacher to pick a favorite student, which
I
is
like
not
that
easy.
analogy. That's the exact analogy. That's good.
But we're going to put you on that hot seat, Preeti Menon, really, and ask you, how different is the experience of traveling in the wilds of India as against anywhere else? And if you have a favorite place here in India.
Okay, so to begin with, the Indian jungles, they are rainforests, and they're just
Right.
like the Amazon rainforests. So they are different from the Masai Mara savannas, for that matter. But that said, it was in. I'll come to the Indian forests later. It was actually in the Masai Mara, sitting in that jeep and looking into the vastness of the savannas, that I felt I felt so humbled. It was such a humbling experience, and you feel you're just one blip in this entire universe. You are so insignificant. And there's so much that you can do. It was absolutely a humbling experience for me, and that is when I actually felt, all these zebras grazing and the bisons and all those wild, what's it? It was just amazing. Okay, that experience was amazing. That said,
Right.
in India, the jungles, the forests, every forest and jungle in India has got a different look, a different feel, a different vibe. So it's actually hard to pick because each one is unique. Different endangered species in different parts of India. There are some endemic animals which are endemic to that place, but it's these forests which have the endangered species that captures your interest. Um, if I
Yeah.
were to pick, actually, it's very difficult to pick a forest because each one, as I said, is unique. But if I had to pick one, it would be probably something that calls me back over and over again. It's a place that I would like to revisit and something that calls me back. And if that's the case, then I would say it is the Nilgiris in the Western
Oh.
Ghats. That calls me back. I keep revisiting it. It's just so there's just no words to describe it. It's just divine. Just being in that forest and hearing all those sounds that it everything gets drowned out in the city, and one
Right.
just rejuvenate. And to rejuvenate, just go to the forest. That's it.
So beautifully said, really. I mean, we have our office in a gated community that has a lot of trees, and as you were responding, you can still hear the birds tweeting outside. We've
Yeah,
often considered, we're running out of space here. There's just more and more and more and more books, and we think we must kind of move into the city where we can put out the books on a better display. But these sounds, the fact that you're right in the midst of
yeah,
some nature, it's just so rejuvenating in the middle
it
of a
is.
day.
It is
You didn't
because
tell us. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
even when I'm in class and I hear the birds tweeting outside, I tell the children, listen to that, look at that, look at the birds. Can you hear the sounds? And even they would. All you have to do is to just expose them to it, just make them listen to it or make them aware of it. We're just not aware. It's there all around us. We just need to
That's right.
stop and just smell the roses. That's what we need to do.
You've got to be the first one, the first teacher who's saying, "Don't listen to my lecture, listen to the birds
Yeah, I do
instead."
that. I do
Really.
that. I do that many times. Yeah.
You didn't tell us about your favorite endangered animal. We're not going
Ah,
to
my
get let
favorite.
you go away
Okay, all right,
without
okay.
saying.
So, my favorite. I mean, I don't have a favorite. Again, like I said, but I do. For me, while writing about, let's say, writing about the Tigerina toad, for instance.
Mhm.
Okay, I enjoyed writing about that because that, to me, as an educator, some of the characters resonated with me. Tigerina toad, for instance. I'm not giving away too much, but the way the way the toad struggles with spelling. Let's first, for instance. But here's the beauty gift, that of playing an instrument. So to me, that is what is the a true. It encapsulates what a holistic education is all about. You need not be academically inclined all the time. There's just so much else that's happening around you. So that, yes, that was one incident which I could resonate with. Yeah.
A
So
lovely scholarly pick for sure. There's so many of your friends who are cheering on for you. Lucia Matthews saying, "What a proud moment for us,
yeah,
your
yeah.
buddies, Preets." Mary Abraham saying, "Great going, Preeti." Ranjani Nambiar saying, "Witty and informative, Preeti, as always." Shamala Pal saying, "She's free, feeling really proud." Saumini Balachandran saying, "Feeling so proud to see you here, Preeti." And Jayashree
Wonderful.
Iyer
Thank you so
saying,
much. Thank you so much. They're all my friends and
"Great
classmates.
going,
And
Preeti.
wonderful.
We're feeling so proud of you." Obviously, lots of friends and family rooting for you, Preeti. We have author Vijay Lakshmi Nagaraj saying,
Oh,
"Hi, Team Funky Rainbow. So glad to see you and listen to Preeti as well." She has a nature book called Chip, Chirp, Hoot, The Sounds of Nature, listening to the sounds of nature. And she says, "It's such a pleasure to listen to what you're saying." Vinita Nair saying, "I'm absolutely enjoying reading your book and enjoying these insights as well." And Vijay saying that happy to know that you too encourage children to listen
oh,
outside the
lovely.
classroom.
Lovely. I love that. More of us should be doing that, actually.
Vijay too, like Sham reminds me, has been a teacher for many, many years, and then using storytelling to work with the tsunami affected kids, cancer affected
Yes,
children,
yes.
and believing in the power of stories, just like
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely.
Um, do, Preeti. So I'm going to ask you this tough question, and I really hope your students are, listening in. And I know you said there was a big lunch get together, but it's always nice to see your teachers getting grilled in a particular way, right? I mean, so you've been teaching, in various, schools, CBSE, State Board, IGSC, IB. How has your teaching career helped you with the writing of the book? I mean, I know yesterday while we were testing, you gave us a lovely insight into how it's made you a lot more of a patient person, and hence you could wait patiently for the publication of the book.
True.
But I want to say, did this interaction with children and reading fuddy duddy textbooks teach you how to skip the boring bits when you really write your own book,
Okay, so I mean, I have been, as you pointed out, teaching for a very long time. So I can say with confidence that my students have in turn, because it's a give and take, it's this teaching is a give and take, and so they have been my biggest teachers. My own children have been my biggest critiques. Like we would come home and we'd have this session where they'd say, this is where you went wrong, this is where you can improve, this is what you should do. They were my biggest critiques, and I appreciate that. I That's how I learned. So in every school that I have taught, I have learned something new. I have learned something wonderful from my students. I always maintain that they are the ones, directly or indirectly, they have taught us patience. Um, they have taught us kindness. They have taught us empathy, and you know, many times they have stirred my imagination. And so when I give them, and I always used to give them creative writing tasks. So the kind of stories that they come up with is incredible. It's brilliant, and you'd wonder, wow, where's all this, fabulous, stories coming out from? So yes, they have taught me patience, and that stood me in good stead when I had to publish my book. It was an eye opener for me. And there are many lessons to be learned here. I have often gone back and see, reflection is a very big part of our teaching and
Right.
learning. So when you step back, reflect on what can be changed, what can work, because it's not a one shoe fit all kind of a thing when you're teaching, especially when you're teaching children. And so indirectly, you learn so much from those experiences. And like I mentioned earlier, they are my inspiration. So yes,
Beautiful. Just beautiful. That line between the teacher and the taught, so beautifully sort of expressing that. We have Piyush Seksaria watching you. He's a wonderful environmentalist. He has this fantastic book for children, called Our Tigers Return, where he has, written the story of how the tigers came back to the Panna Tiger Reserve. And he says,
yes, yes.
absolutely enjoying this lovely interview. Love the part of children being encouraged to listen to the birds. Preeti,
Good. Now I
Piyush
do this
is.
every lesson. At the beginning of every lesson, I say, now stop, listen first, and then let's start. Yeah, that's a good idea.
You must have at some point, Piyush, in your school. That book is
Yeah.
just so wonderful about
Oh,
how,
great.
one of India's most amazing conservation efforts, of reviving the Panna tiger from zero to a remarkable number of 300 or 305 tigers in a decade. I think, your
Wow,
students would
that's
utterly
fantastic.
enjoy listening to him.
Fantastic.
Muttama, of course, giving us lots of insights, saying that, well, Preeti is the one who dragged her students to the Jaipur Lit Fest. So,
Yes,
well,
I hope to drag them again. The second time.
let's join hands in that dragging. I've gone and I intend to drag all of Team Funky Rainbow in there,
No, I
across the
don't
next.
want to drag them. I want to take them because, yeah, it's just,
Absolutely. And Satya Srinivasan says, even I want to learn how to make books or write books. And I'm assuming Shlok. Shlok is probably your student,
oh,
saying that
great.
even I want to learn how to write books. Geetanjali saying, it's so true. Stories are the best way to teach, to engage children's deep interest and attention. And
It's so
Usha George saying, I'm utterly enjoying your talk, Preeti.
lovely. Love you all. Love you all.
So I want to ask you, Preeti, you work with young people every day, and we well and truly believe at Team Funky Rainbow that, working with young people keeps our hopes sort of, flying high always, So do
Always.
you see, as a teacher, promise in the younger generation when it comes to protecting our planet's diversity? I mean, young people today are most definitely asking adults legitimate uncomfortable questions, and to
True.
create a better world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that your experience as well, Preeti?
Oh, definitely, definitely, Vidya. There is a lot of promise among the students. I see many students, more and more with each passing year. I see students just taking the path that is off track, the offbeat path, and they're working towards conservation measures, and taking, working in for the environment. So a lot of my students have gone on to become marine biologists, for instance. Yeah,
Oh,
and
nice.
they're working, that's such a fabulous thing, working as a marine biologist. I have students who have become nat geo photographers. That's amazing. Nat geo and then I have students who are wildlife enthusiasts, and who are animal activists. So there is a lot. It's very heartening to see that there's a lot of promise. So it's not just all, the usual or the regular, but there are students, children who feel the need, as they become adults, they feel the need to step out, go and do something for the environment, do something for the preservation and conservation of our natural and faunal diversity. So I'm very happy about that. Yes, that is, and that is, because, and you have to just catch them young. That's the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. I mean, we have, earlier in the show, I was talking of Bittu Sehgal. And even when I was well past the age of reading Sanctuary Cub, the magazine that he
Yes.
started, and he had a Project Tiger, Kids for Tigers campaign running in the magazine. Wholeheartedly participating in these things. I mean, children really hold the hope
Yeah,
for our world.
absolutely. They
Very
do. They really do. And for instance, there were these students. There were some students who actually used as their personal projects. They talked about wildlife conservation and how they actually went into the Spanna and Kanha national forests and they worked over there. So uh, imagine if they have that interest now, what they would do
right.
when they are adults. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we just need to
Absolutely.
foster that interest and pique that interest in them right from the start.
Absolutely. Jayashri Iyer says, I resonate with so many things that you're saying, Preeti, and you're articulating it so well. Mutima says, more power to you, Preeti. And Shamla says, it was an eye opener, Preeti. I got some invaluable tips for my kids too. Thank you so much. That, of course, brings me to my last question. I mean, most people watching us, on the show today, there are some children watching, of course, of, different age groups. But what do you think parents, teachers, and librarians can do
Hmm.
to ensure that nature becomes our children's best teacher? And I think a teacher is the best one to ask this question to as well, really, right?
No, that's true. I firmly believe that just like role modeling is the best way to nurture a reading culture in the child, because children see what they see is what they do, right? So just as how we can role model reading, the same way we can role model this love for nature. So for instance, replace an outing to the mall with a trip to our natural to the nature reserve. Just do that.
Well said.
Take them on safaris. Take them have little treks. Go to the local parks. You don't have to go somewhere so expensive. You don't have to go anywhere far. Just Bangalore. Or any place in India. I mean, this any cities in India. Go to the lung space over there, and just get them to wonder. So when we do that, they will emulate us. It's I mean, I know that personally speaking, as an educator, I know that taking children on field trips is such an exciting and it's an adventure for them. Taking them on these field trips, and you can see that wonder in their face, in their eyes, in the questions they ask. I mean, the kind of questions the students ask, it's astounding. It stumps you sometimes and you feel, duh, why didn't I think of it before? It's amazing what the students can actually do. Get them involved in wildlife conservation measures in small bite-sized measurable steps. You don't have to go big in the beginning. Just small little measurable steps will go a long way in piquing that curiosity and in kindling and rekindling that interest in our wildlife. There's just so much. So children, if we do it as adults, they will automatically follow suit. So that's one thing. And yeah, I mean, see, basically, this is what I want my children to feel like at the beginning of the day. It's like all of you, everyone knows Winnie the Pooh. I mean, he's such a lovable character. And so he asks his best friend, Piglet, um, he says, "What day is it?" And Piglet says, "It's today." And Winnie says, "Ah, that's my favorite day." That's what children should feel like when they come to class. This is my favorite day. Today I'm going to discover this. And in the meantime, and in the process, discover animals, discover nature, discover what we have around us. There's just so much to explore. Give them that. Just open the door a wee bit. They'll do the rest.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. That's what your fantastic book does. When the Jungles Whisper People, published by HarperCollins, written by Preeti Menon, opens the door to children not just a wee bit, it opens it wide, for us to come, and explore, the natural beauty of India. I just love the fact that she has, taken us through so many diverse habitats in India. And, this is such a great way to kickstart that curiosity that Preeti is just, just so eloquently spoke about. Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj says, absolutely agree. Children are very enthusiastic about caring for the environment. Many doable things at school and home that
Very,
each one of
absolutely.
them, can do. And Mary Abraham says, I think nature walks right from kindergarten will definitely make a difference
Yeah,
when they get to touch, feel, and hear
true,
things for
true
real.
that, true that.
Uh,
It's all sensation. For them, it's sensory imagery. And that, if we nurture that, cultivate that sensory imagery in them right from the start, that's it. You have a winner in every child.
How very, very wonderful. Tell us, when you're doing your next class, there are going to be many grown up students who are going to be coming and sitting there for sure. We love the enthusiasm with which you've responded to the questions. Muttama has the great grilling question up for you. She says, when's your next book coming out?
It is hopefully, it is coming out soon. Hopefully, I've already it's there. It's already written. Manuscript is ready, and it is up for review. So let's see. Hopefully, it should come out
A
soon.
big, big,
And yeah,
go
I'll
ahead,
keep
finish. And
writing.
then
Like I said, it's always. See, so here's the thing. Just keep writing. Keep writing.
teachers, a lot to salute you for. I mean, I think every time we go to a school, as Team Funky Rainbow did, we just did a literature festival in Tirunelveli and came back. We were there for a whole week. I think we just need to doff our hats to educators and teachers for really, for keeping our children curious, imaginative and inquisitive, because that's the thing about children that makes them, so wonderful to interact with. Thank you so much, Preeti, for joining us on this conversation. Vijay Lakshmi
Thank
says,
you.
thank you for this very interesting Buzzaar Team Funky Rainbow. It was absolutely lovely listening to Preeti. Such a pleasure having you here with us today, Preeti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vidya and Mutama and your team for calling me and for having me on your show. It's been so pleasurable. I've really enjoyed the session, and thank you again. Thank you once again. Yes, for calling me.
Bye bye. That was Priti Menon, most enthusiastic teacher. Do consider picking her up, her wonderful book, which has excellent, testimonials from Ullas Karan and Romulus Whitaker. Just a lovely, lovely book to introduce your children to the beauty of the wild. Before we go off today, I'm going to say hello and thank you to a whole bunch of people who joined us in the course of the show. Of course, Vijay Lakshmi sending out a greetings to all teachers, greetings to all the teachers in the world, and teachers of all kinds from all of us at Team Funky Rainbow. Book Pickle, Tara Veera Raghavan, Divya Menon, Avyukta Nameya Nair, Rupa Baliga, Satya Srinivasan, Satish Sundaram, Vijay Lakshmi Nagaraj, Mary Abraham, Anubalan Menon, Brainy Worms, Lata Purnan, T4 Tales, Being Harshale, Rasil Reeds, Anjali, Sujita Krishnamurthy, Twists in the Tail, Narayan Swami, Disha, Arti Mutanna Singh, Anindita, Shampoo Chats, Anubha, Rambo Menon, Shanta Kumar, Ramesh Menon, Arjun, Renjani Menon, Baby Bookaholic, Snapper, Coffee Curves, Raheel, Sharan Vish, Samantha Sudhir, and Vaishali. Thank you so much for joining us this Saturday. We hope you dive deep into the wild books that we have up on our website. Do consider picking them up from Funky Rainbow, www.funkyrainbow.com. We ship across the country. We really would love your support when it comes to choosing Indian children's books. Thank you to so many of you, Jayashri Iyer, Lucia Matthews. Thank you for sending out your hugs and wishes to Preeti. We just absolutely love how supportive you all are as friends. We'll see you next week with another theme and another bazaar. Till then, keep reading, keep smiling.